Hi there again, Dr. Kukral here. Well, I'm going to try to replicate some of my lectures so you get the idea what it's like to be in my class. These may not be as professional as some things, but it's what it's like to be in my class at Rose Holman and to listen to me sometime. These won't be as long as 50 minutes. I don't want to put you through that, but I do want to go over certain things that may help. I know this is a difficult time for everybody. Some people are in quarantine, and I could use a haircut and other things like that, but that's simple things we have to deal with to be safe. So hopefully these lectures you may learn a little bit too, see what we can get through, some topics. I'll film these inside because it's a little more quiet maybe, hopefully. I tried to find a place where there's no distractions here in the house. So in all my classes, I think one of the important topics, introductory topics, are regions of the earth. What is a region, right? A region is how we break down areas on the surface of the earth, okay? And a region of the earth is a place where you're going to have some common characteristics or traits that you can identify and give it some cohesiveness, give it some identity. You know, a region has an identity, it has some cohesiveness, it has characteristics and traits that we're able to point out and say, yes, that part of the earth is maybe different than others. It may not have a definite boundary. You're not going to see a welcome sign. It may go over state lines and boundaries between countries, but it's a part of the earth that helps us to categorize in our minds and break things down and think about how we can organize our thoughts about the earth. We can't just learn 237 countries. That's sort of ridiculous. I mean, nobody does that unless you're, I don't know what you are if you do that. But we're going to try to break it down in some regions. In world geography, we look at some pretty big regions of the earth, right? In Europe, we break Europe down into several regions and focus on those. I have a visitor. Focus on those. He's a heavy cat. Hey! Focus on those too. Anyways, let's think about what kinds of regions there are first of all. Like all geography, we can break down regions of the earth into physical regions and break them down into human regions. Okay, what are some physical regions of the earth? Well, they're going to be identified by characteristics of the land. Okay, so let's think about regions that may be mountain regions of the earth. Okay, so we could talk about the Appalachian region in the United States. We could talk about the Alpine region in Europe. We could talk about the Drakensberg in South Africa as a distinctive physical region. Or we could think about the dry areas. We could talk about the Sahara Desert as a region, the Taklamakan Desert in China. We could talk about areas of the earth, again, identified with common characteristics that give it a distinctive identity and often a name to it as well. Okay, the Great Lakes is a physical region of the earth. Everybody knows the Great Lakes. Okay, I tried to pick a place without distractions in the house. I went to hide a little bit here. Okay, well, he's all right. Just don't break things as usual. So we have those physical regions. What about human regions of the earth? Okay, human regions are how we're going to find some common traits. We could look at what? We could look at French-speaking Canada, Francophone Canada, as a distinctive region because it has an identity to it that separates it from other parts of Canada. And we'd have to say maybe that's an area, if we're going to map it out, where we have take my notes, where we have a majority of people speaking French. Okay, a region sometimes doesn't mean you have all the characteristics present. You have a core area of a region where most of the traits and characteristics are present. As you get further away from that core into the periphery, you're going to have some of the traits present and you're going to have regions overlapping each other, especially when we get into human regions, okay? Because human geography is not an absolute science, okay? There's lots of different interpretations, lots of different answers learning about the earth, okay? So we look at human regions. We could break them down by cultural traits. Okay, where is the Islamic world? Where is the French-speaking parts of Canada? Where are the French-speaking parts of Canada? What about Latin America? That's a major cultural region of the earth. That's very large, Latin America, based on people who speak a Latin-based language and their culture that's emerged from there. We could look at things beyond languages for cultural regions. We could look at things such as what else? Well, I mentioned religion for one, with Islam. We could look at something like an industrial region of the earth, which is obviously a human region. We can look at the manufacturing zone of China, where all the manufacturing cities are. That's a distinctive region. If we go north of there to the North China Plain, that's a physical region again. Just like the Great Plains of the United States are a physical region. But when we talk about human regions, humans have changed things and given an identity to it, okay? Maybe the third group of regions I want to bring up, I brought physical regions, human regions. Well, some of them merge, some of them combine. Think about in the U.S. How do we break down the U.S.? When we think about the U.S., we don't just say, oh yeah, I'm from the United States here, or I'm from Missouri, or I'm from Maine, or I'm from Idaho. We're going to think about maybe a larger area. Oh, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm from the Midwest, right? Or I'm from the South. Or I'm from New England. Or I'm from the Northwest. Or I'm from the Rocky Mountains. Or I'm from Appalachia. I used to live in Appalachia. I could tell you stories about it. Or I'm from Southern California. And that perhaps is a distinctive region of the United States. But we break it down to organized places in our mind. Okay, I want you to think about what region of the United States you're from, or within your own country or another part of the world. We have students in my classes from all over the place, I know that. What are the characteristics that define it? Okay, I'm going to ask you that maybe in a dialogue or something we'll put on the page there, okay, on the class page. On Moodle, that's what I was trying to think of, Moodle, there we go. So I might ask you, what are the defining characteristics of the Midwest? What defines the Midwest, right? Good question. What defines the Midwest? People say they're from the Midwest. Well, physically, it's a glaciated part of the United States, right? It's where the glaciers created a distinctive landscape, landforms that was very good for agriculture, certain types of agriculture, okay? So when we think of the Midwest, we're thinking of these places. They're not flat places. There are very few places on Earth that are flat. They're gently rolling hills. They're sloping. They're river drainage systems. We have major rivers in the Midwest, the Missouri, the Ohio, the Wabash, again and again. What states make up the Midwest? Where would you draw that on the map? Okay, you know, if you're in one of the I states, you're in the Midwest. You don't have a choice. Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, that is the core of the Midwest. If you're further out, where does the Midwest end? Well, there's no definite boundary, okay? There's not a definite boundary. It's not like we can draw a line around and say this is the boundary of the Midwest. We can say, sure, you know, the cultural characteristics that define it, the family farm, corn, hogs, other things, but also industrial cities. The Midwest has the old industrial cities, right? We have Detroit, we have Chicago, we have Indianapolis, we have Columbus and Cincinnati, we have Des Moines, Iowa, and St. Louis maybe. Why do I say maybe? Well, think about it. Is Missouri part of the Midwest? Is it part of the South? Is Kentucky part of the Midwest, or is it part of the South if you're from Louisville? Okay? Is Michigan part of the Midwest? Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, is that Midwestern? I want you to think about those things. What are the boundaries of the Midwest? What do we consider? Okay, and then what are the human characteristics of the Midwest? You know, who are the people of the Midwest? What are they like? Are they different than people of the South? Are they different than people of the West Coast? Are they different than people of New England? Well, our urban population is what? We can think about biology. We can think about the people. We have people who are white, Caucasian. We have people who are African American in our cities. Those two groups make up the majority of people in our cities. In our rural areas, the majority of the people are white. And if we go another step, the majority of people speak English as a common language. If we want to look at religion and think about the big picture when we're thinking globally, we're talking about Christianity, as a majority of people belong to some member of some group within Christianity. They may not be practicing, they may not believe anything, but they're still identified as that because it's part of the culture. Okay, it's made the culture of the Midwest quite a bit. Okay, there are always minorities to everything in geography. Okay, there was a Jewish minority in the Midwest, in our urban places. All right, there is an Islamic minority in the Midwest as well. But the vast majority of people, when we talk about a majority, remember, we're only talking about 51% or more. It makes up a majority. So there's a lot of people in the Midwest that Christianity has shaped traditions, family practices, laws, the outlook on life, the way people live, whether they're practicing the religion or not. A lot of people are members of the major denominations: Roman Catholicism, Methodism, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Baptists. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody in there. But these are some of the major recognized groups of Christianity. Okay, Protestants and Catholics. That's sort of a big division. Eastern Orthodoxy is a big division as well. We don't have so many, except in the cities. In the Midwest, as a group, we have in Terre Haute, Indiana, we have an Eastern Orthodox Church. We have St. George's Syrian Orthodox Church. Okay? We'll talk about religion a little bit more. But anyways, how do you define the Midwest? Yeah, what are the characteristics? If you go to work overseas and you say you're from the Midwest and they say, I don't know what that is. What does that mean? What do you eat in the Midwest? What is Midwestern cuisine? And I don't want to hear corn. I know I like corn. I'm making corn for dinner tonight. You know, I'm going to boil some sweet corn tonight for dinner. One of my absolute favorites. Okay, I grew up eating a lot of sweet corn. We had a roadside stand, my grandfather. I'd sit out there and help him sell sweet corn on the road when I was a kid. Okay, I learned a lot from my grandfather. He was born in the 1880s, my granddad, and he died in the 1980s. So I was around him a long time. And I heard a lot of stories about how everything's changed so much. And I think that's part of my interest in geography, how land use changes and how people change. But think about, what are the defining characteristics of the American Midwest? And maybe they're changing. Maybe the family farm is disappearing, because that's always been something we've been known for. How is that different than the American South? Where does the South start? Well, I can tell you, if you live in Mississippi, you live in the South. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, that's the deep South. Louisiana. If you haven't visited that part of the country, and I'm not counting New Orleans for spring break, but sometime make a trip. Go down to Mississippi and Alabama, drive through the countryside. It's very different than the North. It has a different history, a different culture, speech patterns, dialects, accents. We talk about that with the South quite a bit. Of course, us who are Midwesterners, and I guess I'm a Midwesterner being from Ohio, we like to think we don't have any accent or any speech patterns, or we don't speak weirdly like the people in the South or the people in the Bronx or New York or Boston or New England. You know, when I travel to other countries, and I've worked at universities and in Europe and in Africa, and have met, and in Japan, and have met professors and worked with them and students, and they often say to me, they go, you're really easy to understand. We can understand your English better than some of the other foreigners who come here, from Scotland, from New York, from wherever they come. They always say, I say, well, that's because I'm from Ohio. We don't have any accent in Ohio. You know, we might have some words we use and some things we say, but we like to think we don't have an accent. We do. We do have something. Everybody does. Think about the United States. What are the big cultural regions of the United States? Where is New England? Where's the Mid-Atlantic? Where's the South? Is Florida part of the South? Florida's really changed. Florida's really different. The Panhandle's part of the South. But when you get down to Miami, you might say you're part of Latin America there. Really? Okay, and where does Texas fit in this? Is Texas a southern state? Is it part of the Southwest, like New Mexico and Arizona? What about the Northwest? Is that just Oregon and Washington? Or should we throw Idaho in there? there's always states that don't quite fit. My corner of Ohio, just in as example, which is the northeast corner. Look at a map of Ohio. Columbus is in the center, Cincinnati's in the southwest, Cleveland's in the northeast. Okay, Toledo's in the northwest, and I grew up about 30 miles out of Cleveland. Okay, and my part of Ohio was settled all by people from Connecticut. And people from Connecticut were given land there after the American Revolution and after the War of 1812 when the British burned their homes so nicely. They were given land. It was reserved for people from Connecticut, that corner of Ohio. It was opened up to them. And it was called the Connecticut Western Reserve. Does that name ring a bell? How about Western Reserve? How about Case Western Reserve? I think everybody knows that university. We have several faculty here who are graduates of Case Western Reserve in Cleveland. Okay, this was the Western Reserve for people from Connecticut. So when they settled in northeastern Ohio, they transformed the landscape to make it look a lot like New England. There's a New England feeling in northeastern Ohio with a public square maybe in every little town. Maybe it has a clock tower, it has a public green, it has nice old wood frame buildings around the public square. And that's how they settled because that's what they knew in New England. So that corner of Ohio to me does not look as much like the Midwest as other places. It looks a lot like New England. Okay, so sometimes, state boundaries aren't the best things for regions. When we go to Europe, we're going to break down Europe into some big regions like Scandinavia, the British Isles, the Mediterranean, maybe German-speaking Europe. Maybe we can break it down by language regions and talk about the Romance language group, the Germanic group of languages, and the Slavic-speaking group of languages. Those are the big three. So anyways, I'm going to stop there, but I want you to think about regions and think about regions in your own country and how we perceive them, because these are perceived to exist. When we talk about human regions, we perceive that the South exists. We perceive that the Midwest exists, and we recognize it and identify it because it shares common traits and cultural stuff, right? But what are these? I want you to think about that, okay? And I'm going to ask you some of those questions. All right, that's it for now on regions. I'm going to turn to another video and get ready. And I think my cats have settled down. Give them a break. They're young cats, both of them. They're about a year old, and they're very curious. They like to open cupboards. And I think geography is about curiosity, too. So talk to you later. Bye.